Notre Dame University has been engaged in a longitudinal study over the course of several decades regarding what criteria Catholics use when choosing what church to attend to worship. There are three things that have constantly risen to the top of the lists of reasons to go to a specific church, and they are the quality of the preaching, the quality of the music, and a good-looking pastor. No, I made that up. It's the quality of the preaching, the quality of the music, and an environment of hospitality. And here at St. Joseph University Parish, we've been focusing on these same three goals for the past several decades. However, we have found that there is a fourth criteria, which brings people into our congregation and gives them a reason to remain part of our community. And that is our parish's commitment to issues of social justice. We could have the best preaching, the best music, the very best environment of hospitality, but without the commitment to social justice, many would not remain in our parish. That is where their passion is. That is where their faith is lived out. They recognize that justice is not just an add-on, not just another option, but that it is intrinsic to the message of Jesus, the message of the kingdom that he seeks to establish in our world and in our hearts. Today's gospel that we have just heard is more than a collection of Jesus' sayings about love. Behind all of these admonitions is a singular challenge repeated over and over again to take on the demanding and costly work of breaking the cycle of fear, vengeance, and hatred that is tearing apart our communities and our institutions. Jay Cormier states it this way so clearly when he says, "At the heart of Jesus' teaching is a call to empathy, putting aside our own hurts and disappointments in order to imagine ourselves in the place of another, to understand and to take on the hurts and disappointments that our enemy is feeling, and to experience that. To love those who hurt us begins with a sense of compassion that understands and acknowledges the hurt and pain in the lives of the ones we find most difficult to love. We cannot hope to love our enemies until we see beyond the stereotypes we reduce others to, and the labels based on religion, race, social standing, and wealth that we casually and carelessly assign to groups and classes." He concludes, "Only in understanding the griefs and disappointments of those we love and those we want nothing to do with can we begin to break the endless cycle of hatred, fear, and vengeance that entraps us and plunges our world into bitter darkness." With this in mind, our Parish Social Justice Committee is actually a grouping of several subcommittees ranging in focus from local to global issues. Most of these subcommittees were founded by parishioners who came forward and said, "We're concerned about this and we think we should be doing something about it." And the parish team responded by saying, "We will support you in any way we can, but the ball is in your court." And with that, they were off and running. These many subcommittees include issues such as human trafficking, gun violence, refugee and immigration, community mental health, Habitat for Humanity, ecology and the environment, anti-racism, and so many others. But today, rather than try to describe the dynamics and purpose of several, let alone all of these committees, I just want to focus for a couple minutes on one, our Anti-Racism Committee. Founded a couple of years ago and now having some 25 members, their mission statement underlines their purpose. It says, "We are committed to deepening St. Joseph University's parish invitation to live justly by cultivating an anti-racist community through awareness, education, and progressive action that disrupts white supremacy embedded at the personal, cultural, institutional, and systemic levels of our society." And I think we must add, and of our church. Now, before we go any further, I want to say a couple of things about why I chose this particular subcommittee to focus on. First of all, February is Black History Month. And secondly, we are living in an era when divisions, racial, economic, ethnic, gender orientation, have created what seem to be unbridgeable chasms. But when we focus on one particular group or problem, it does not mean that all the others are not as critical. By no means. It is seeing how pervasive, how insidious, how destructive these biases, these prejudices, this hatred can be for every and all groups. So when I say Black Lives Matter, as I will in a moment, it does not mean that other groups do not. All lives matter. I was privileged for 7 years to be the chaplain to the Buffalo Police Department. And in that ministry, I met some of the most caring, committed, and self-giving individuals I have ever met in my almost 50 years of priesthood. So yes, I will say, before you do, blue lives matter, especially as we see the tragically increasing numbers of police officers killed on duty. All lives matter. But as you may have heard me say when I was preaching on the parable of the Good Shepherd last year, the Good Shepherd goes in search of the lost sheep, not because the other 99 sheep don't matter, but because the other 9 sheep are safe at that time. It was the lost sheep that was alone and in danger. Now back to our anti-racism committee. They're committed to creating a community that has a sustained commitment to being on the side of racial justice. The plan they have developed has several goals, including working to increase diversity of our staff, our school faculty, and among our volunteers, creating a culture and climate where all people of color feel at home and welcome, informing and educating all of us through the bulletin, the website, and social media of what actions can be taken to create a more just and inclusive society, incorporating music of different cultures, Black, Hispanic, Indigenous people into worship, as Paul will do today in the Thanksgiving hymn after communion, demonstrating a commitment to diversity and racial justice through the liturgy and physical environment. We can do this in simple and subtle ways. For example, the cross, or rather the corpus that hangs in this chapel, is from Africa. Praying in front of it should challenge us to see that Jesus was Mediterranean and probably does not look much like me, unless I'm from Northern Africa or the Middle East. As a community of faith, we proclaim that justice is long in coming and that we have a responsibility to bring it about. Perhaps you are being called to join the Anti-Racism Committee, or perhaps to join one of the many other social justice subcommittees. But we are all being called by Jesus in the gospel to do something. Paul, in the second reading today, challenged us to bear the image of the heavenly Jesus. We mirror his image in our struggles to love God and our neighbor as Jesus loved us, completely and unconditionally. Oh, and one last thing. I can never hear Jesus say, as he did at the end of today's gospel, the measure with which you measure will in return be measured out to you, without remembering that when I was a young child, my mother had a measuring cup. It was kind of like this one. It was red and it had a floor that could be adjusted to hold greater amounts or lesser amounts of flour or sugar or whatever you might need to measure. This one operates along the same principle. If you put it here, you can load it with about 1 ounce of whatever you're measuring. But if you open it all the way and put it here, you can measure 16 ounces or 2 cups. That's quite a difference. I think this represents our heart. The degree to which you expand and open your heart is the degree to which God can fill your heart with peace, healing, love, and joy for you and for the world. God will fill the space in your heart and in your life to the full. But God can only fill it to the degree that you open it. But how much you will be given depends upon how much you open yourself to love and be loved. The measure with which you measure will in return be measured out to you.